Your life as a fake Forex guru. You're sitting in a rented Lamborghini outside a WeWork in Miami that you don't actually have an office in. The car costs $800 for the day. The watch on your wrist is real. The rest of the image is a construction project that started 2 years ago and has gotten so convincing that sometimes you forget which parts are true. Your phone is propped against the dashboard at the exact angle that catches the light on the steering wheel. You're filming your 4th piece of content today. You say the word mindset 3 times in 45 seconds. You say the phrase, nobody talks about this, about something that literally everybody talks about. You end with, drop a comment if you want access to my free masterclass. The masterclass is not free. Nothing is free, but we'll get to that. It wasn't supposed to go like this. 3 years ago, you were a 26-year-old with a marketing degree, a mid-level job at an insurance company, and a genuine curiosity about investing. You weren't a bad person. You were actually kind of a good one. You read books, you took notes, you watched YouTube videos at 2 a.m. about candlestick patterns and support levels and Fibonacci retracements, and you thought, with the sincere excitement of someone who has just discovered a locked door they believe they can open, I think I understand this. You opened a demo account. You traded fake money for 3 months. You won more than you lost. You moved to a real account with $2,000 you'd saved from your salary. You made $400 in the first week. You thought, this is it. You thought, I found the thing. That $400 was the most expensive money you ever made because it taught you the wrong lesson at exactly the right moment. And lessons learned at the right moment stick in ways that lessons learned later never do. You quit your job 4 months later. Not because you were profitable. You weren't. Not really. Not in a way that would hold up to scrutiny. You quit because you'd started posting about trading on Instagram and something strange had happened. People were watching. Not many. A few hundred. Then 1,000. Then 5,000. And those people didn't know what you didn't know. To them, you were the guy who understood the thing they didn't understand yet. And there is a specific kind of power in being the person who appears to know something in a room full of people who don't. You told yourself you'd be honest. That's the part worth noting. You told yourself you would only teach what you actually knew. You would document your journey. Real trades, real losses, real lessons. You were going to be the authentic one, the one who wasn't selling a dream. That lasted about 6 weeks. Here is what killed it. Not greed. Not immediately. What killed it was a comment. One comment on one post from a guy named Brandon, who wrote, "You actually traded live today or just theory?" It was not a hostile comment. Brandon was genuinely curious, but you read it at 11 p.m. after a day where you'd made 3 trades and lost on 2 of them, and you were not in the mood for genuinely curious. You were in the mood for validation, and something in you decided, quietly, without making a formal announcement to your conscience, that the story you told about your trading from that point forward was going to be the version that Brandon needed to hear, not the version that actually happened. You started filtering. Not lying, you told yourself. Filtering, you posted the wins. You didn't post the losses. You framed drawdowns as learning experiences. You started talking about your system as though you had one. A real one. Tested and proven, when what you actually had was a collection of instincts that worked sometimes and didn't work other times, and you were not yet sure which conditions determined which. Your following doubled in 2 months. Then doubled again. The first time someone sent you a DM asking you to teach them, you felt 2 things simultaneously. The first was flattery. The second was something quieter, colder, a small alert from somewhere in your nervous system that said, careful, you did not listen to that alert, you are still not listening to it, but we'll get there. You created a course, $297, Foundations of Smart Money Forex. You filmed it in your apartment over a weekend, 12 modules. You covered the basics, support and resistance, risk management, reading the higher time frame. The content was not wrong, exactly. You hadn't fabricated the technical analysis, but woven through all of it, in the framing and the promises and the before and after screenshots that decorated the sales page, was a story about outcomes that the content itself could not deliver. You knew that. You knew it when you wrote the sales copy. You wrote it anyway. 43 people bought it in the first 2 weeks. $12,000. You sat with that number for a long time. This is the part nobody tells you about. Not the guilt. The guilt was there, but it was manageable. What nobody tells you about is how real the money feels. How it makes the other feeling smaller. How your brain, which is very good at finding justifications for things that make it feel safe, immediately went to work building a case for why this was fine. The content is legitimate, people learn from it, they can make their own decisions. The market is full of worse courses than mine. That last one. You repeated that one a lot. The market is full of worse courses than mine, which is true. and which is also the oldest trick in the book for someone who needs to feel less bad about something. You hired an editor, then a thumbnail designer. You started running ads. The persona evolved in stages, the way these things always do. You didn't sit down one afternoon and decide to become a character. It happened incrementally, one decision at a time, each one slightly further from true north than the one before it, each one small enough to feel survivable. The rented cars started as a joke, almost. A friend of yours who was also in the space said that the background of your videos was too plain, said it needed energy, said your audience needed to feel like they were buying access to a lifestyle, not just information. You said that sounded manipulative. He said it was just marketing. You said there was a difference. He sent you the link to a luxury car rental service and told you to try it once. You tried it once. The video you filmed in the driveway of a house you told people was yours got 200,000 views. The house was an Airbnb. You paid $650 for the weekend. The video generated $40,000 in course sales over the following 10 days. You stopped talking about the difference between marketing and manipulation. The community came next. Every serious guru in the space had one. A Discord, a Telegram, a membership portal where real money got you access to live trades, real-time signals, direct mentorship. You understood what it was. You understood that signals-based communities are legally murky and ethically murkier, that the people paying $97 a month for access to your alerts were often people who couldn't afford to lose what they were about to lose. You understood all of that. You built the community anyway. 800 members in the first month. $77,600 in recurring monthly revenue. Here is the thing about having a community like that. Here is the thing nobody explains when you are on the outside looking in. You have to perform certainty, constantly, in public and in private. In your videos and in your DMs and in the live trading sessions where 200 people are watching and waiting for you to call a direction and you are staring at a chart that is telling you approximately nothing and you have to open your mouth and sound like someone who knows. You became very good at sounding like someone who knows. A man named Derek joined your community 8 months in, 44 years old. Derek messaged you on day 1 to say he'd been watching you for a year and that your content had changed the way he thought about money. Derek was a logistics manager from Columbus, Ohio. He had $18,000 in savings. He deposited $15,000 of it into a Forex broker account 3 weeks after joining your community. You know this because Derek told you he was proud of it. He sent you a screenshot of the deposit confirmation with a smiley face. You did not tell Derek that $15,000 was too much to deposit. You did not tell Derek that most retail Forex traders lose money. You did not tell Derek that your own live account performance, if you removed the cherry-picked screenshots and ran the actual numbers, was not what your sales page suggested. You sent Derek a thumbs up emoji and told him to stick to the system. Derek blew his account in 11 weeks. He didn't message you when it happened. You found out because another member of the community mentioned it in a thread. Derek had quietly left. No goodbye. No angry message. Just gone. You thought about Derek for 3 days. You thought about him most at night. Then you filmed a new YouTube video about the biggest mistakes beginners make, and the Derek thoughts got quieter. They didn't go away, they just got quieter. You have found that most things get quieter if you stay busy enough. This is a feature of your current life that you try not to examine too closely. The influencer machine runs on collaboration, and you were invited into it about a year in. Other gurus in the space, some of them bigger than you, some of them smaller, operated on a simple economy. You promote my course to your audience, I promote yours to mine. Affiliate commissions, cross-pollination, everyone grows. You attended your first creator meetup in Dubai. There were 22 people in a hotel suite at midnight, and everyone in the room was, to varying degrees, selling something that didn't entirely exist to people who couldn't entirely afford it. You felt at home in that room in a way that took 3 days to fully reckon with. One of the men in that room, a 28-year-old named Kofi, who had 1.2 million YouTube subscribers and sold a $2,000 program called Institutional Edge, leaned over to you at some point in the evening and said, very casually, the way you say things when you've long since stopped being surprised by your own honesty, half my students think they're buying a trading strategy. They're buying hope. Hope is the most renewable resource on earth. You laughed. You didn't want to laugh, but you laughed. You have thought about that sentence many times since. Your mother called you 6 months ago. She wanted to tell you she'd seen your videos, that her friends had been asking about you, that she was so proud. She said you'd always been the smart one. She said your father would have been proud too. She cried a little. You told her you loved her. You hung up and sat in your home office, the real one, not the rented one, for a long time. Then your community manager knocked and said you had a live session starting in 20 minutes and 300 people were already in the waiting room. You went live. You were good. You were very, very good. You called a setup on the pound dollar with the kind of composed authority that makes people feel like they are in the presence of someone who actually knows. 3 people in the chat said it was the clearest explanation they'd ever seen. Someone sent a super chat thanking you for changing their life. The trade didn't hit. It stopped out 30 minutes after the session ended. You didn't mention that in the next video. The reviews started appearing about a year in, not the bad ones. You had expected some bad ones, and you had prepared for them, and you had a team member whose unofficial job was to respond to them and bury them with positive testimonials. What you had not prepared for was the specific texture of the bad ones. The ones that didn't sound angry, the ones that sounded tired. I followed this guy for 8 months. I'm down $6,000. He never acknowledges when his calls are wrong. The community mods delete any post that asks hard questions. Not a scam, exactly, just empty. The content sounds like something, but when you try to apply it, nothing works the way he says it does. I don't think he's a bad person. I think he just stopped caring at some point and kept going anyway. That last one, you read it on a Tuesday morning while eating breakfast. You read it 4 times. You screenshot it and then immediately deleted the screenshot. You thought about it for the rest of the day. The thing about building a persona is that it develops its own gravity. At a certain scale, the cost of honesty becomes larger than the cost of continuation. You have 380,000 followers across platforms. You have a team of 6 people whose salaries depend on the revenue. You have a brand deals pipeline, a second course in development, a podcast that launched last month. The infrastructure of the thing is real, even if the foundation of the thing is not. And you tell yourself, because you have to tell yourself something, that the infrastructure protects people, that your team has jobs, that your free content is genuinely educational, that the community, despite Derek, despite the stopped out live calls, despite the deleted posts, has also helped some people. That last part might even be true. But you know the difference between true and mostly true in the service of avoiding a harder truth. You have always known that difference. It is, in a way, the thing you're best at. There is a moment from 2 months ago that lives in you in a way you haven't been able to shake. You were at a Forex conference in London, panel speaker, front of the room, name badge that said featured speaker in a font that implied authority. During the Q&A, a young woman, maybe 21, came to the microphone. She was nervous. She said she'd been watching you since she was in college. She said she was about to take out a personal loan to invest her trading capital. She wanted to know which broker you recommended. You gave her the name of the broker you had an affiliate deal with. You told her to manage her risk. You told her to never risk more than 1% per trade. You told her the journey was a marathon, not a sprint. She nodded carefully, the way students nod when they are trying to memorize something important. She thanked you. She went back to her seat. You watched her write something down in a notebook. You kept talking. You kept being the featured speaker. But some part of you was still watching her write in that notebook, and something in you, something that has not entirely left, even after everything, wanted to walk down off that stage and say, put the notebook away. Don't take out a loan. Go home and keep the money. You didn't do that. The session ended. You took photos with attendees. You caught a flight home. You posted about the conference the next day, and it got 40,000 impressions. The loan comment is still sitting somewhere in your chest. You can feel it when it's quiet. You stay busy, so it isn't quiet very often. This, you have figured out, is the real product of this life. Not the cars, not the watches, not the conference badges or the follower counts or the monthly revenue. The real product is distraction. Constant, self-generated, highly monetized distraction from the one conversation you are not prepared to have with yourself. Your second course launches in 3 weeks, $1,497. Pro-level price action. The sales page went live last week. Pre-launch signups are at 600. You are still the same person who stayed up until 2 a.m. reading about Fibonacci retracements. You are still curious. You still love the market in the way that you loved it then, genuinely, not as a prop. Some part of this was real once, and maybe still is, underneath everything that has been built on top of it. But Derek is somewhere in Columbus, Ohio, $15,000 lighter, without your thumbs up emoji to show for it. And that young woman in London may have already called her bank. And the notebook exists. Somewhere. With whatever you told her written inside it. Your phone buzzes. Instagram notification, new comment on this morning's post. This man literally changed my life. FR. You like the comment? The Lamborghini shoot is tomorrow. 7 a.m. call time. The car costs $950 for the day now. Inflation. You'll recoup it in the first hour of post-engagement. You close the app, you open your broker terminal, you stare at a chart for a while, not for content, just because you still love this, just because the part of you that started all of this is still in there somewhere, actually trying to understand something true. The mug your sister gave you when you left the insurance job is still on your desk. It says, "Future Millionaire." She meant it sincerely. She was rooting for you. You really should throw that away. You won't though.